Beloveds, got I'm Geeia, Ariati of Sound Heart and Sound Mind. New directive of God for me to speak into the truth and to bring some very uncomfortable expressions to the collective at this current point in time, because we are being put on notice. We, not just everyone. Everyone is being put on notice at this point in time, and that is uncomfortable. So it's been a while since I've done a bit of a collective energetic share and a collective reading or transmission, but this one has been sitting in my field of awareness for quite some time, and I made a declaration this morning that when God speaks, there is no time for hesitation. And so in that, I am speaking to something that I have found extremely uncomfortable to speak into from a human lens. And in relation to speaking from this place, I am here to bring the awareness to what is quite uncomfortable from a very external, zoomed out lens in relation to the bringers of change. So the bringers of change, the divine race, the Father Soul, the beings that are here with specific gifts, specific frequencies and coding, and you know who you are. If you're watching this video, you have some resonance to what this be. And currently there is a collective message of warning from the unified consciousness field and from God itself in relation to the violations of universal law. So what you're seeing in your current experience in the external world is the violation of universal law, or the manipulation of universal law. Now, the beings that are in the hierarchy of being more of a higher expression of consciousness that assist this universe in running in a smooth and balanced way, have come to the awareness that the current matrix system is built on the manipulation of universal law. The matrix system is built on using universal law to trick those into not knowing their own sovereignty and their own sovereign truth. And so what this means is that there are specific universal laws that are coming into play to ensure that the manipulation of universal law is no longer able to take place. So there are additional universal laws coming into play as we shift into a higher vibrational galaxy, into a higher vibrational expression in this universal consciousness, which is what we call Earth. So there are specific laws that are being created to allow for this sovereignty to be reclaimed by the human consciousness, which is here. We are here to bring heaven on earth, and the consciousness of this planet requires to meet the limitless capacity of that which each individual being holds in the remembrance of their own sovereignty. And so in this, what we have come to great awareness of for most beings is that you are taught that you are not sovereign and that you're under the control structures of the matrix systems and the patriarchy. Now, as we are evolving, what is taking place is that the energy systems and the molecular structure of the earth is ascending into a higher vibrational frequency. And whilst the ascension into a higher vibrational frequency takes place, there is an ascension of the collective consciousness. And so as beings are rising into a deeper remembrance of truth within themselves, there is an awareness that as we evolve and we reclaim these sacred knowledges and this sacred information in regards to who we be and what we be, there is greater wisdom means greater responsibility. And so as a collective, we are all evolving. It's at a point where you can see it as a cut and dry expression of evolve or die. Some aspect of the consciousness has to die and be rebirthed into a higher vibrational resonance. Now, how this is the effect of universal law and understanding of consciousness to the level that I'm speaking into today is that as the consciousness evolves, the awareness of our gifts, our abilities, and what we are also is remembered. And so when we come into more remembrance, we have a greater responsibility and ownership to meet our own aspects of self and to ensure that we are in alignment with universal law. So as you start to ascend, as you start to reclaim your gifts, as your vibration increases, as you become a more evolved expression of your infinite potential and start to walk your path, you are expected to follow the universal guidelines of this creation in which you came here to walk in alignment with. Now, for those that are evolving or vibrationally, their energy frequency is ascending, yet they are not choosing to be unified within the truth of that which they be, then what happens is there's violations that are made against universal law. And universal laws are, because we are in a free will zone, they are here to ensure free will. And if you have an awareness of these universal laws at an energetic level, at a spiritual level, at a truth level, and you do not actually abide by them, there is a deep consequence to this. And the consequence is that every single being has a choice, and choice creates something. And so as you're evolving and ascending and you're learning all of these different dynamics of consciousness, you are expected to follow these laws. You are no longer held in a grace period. You will meet consequential actions when you violate these structures of this universe. Now, some of those violations may be simple, and most of you would have felt them, is like when spirit speaks and you have an intuitive guidance and you don't follow it, or an intuitive nudge and you don't follow it, it manifests in your human experience as a bit of a slap, a bit of a discomfort. There's contrast. It's almost instantaneously manifested contrast, and it's like, well, you didn't listen. And that will happen to many of us as we move through. This, however, becomes more and more profound in the depth of consequence. You know, at first it might be that there is you don't listen and you hurt yourself, or you may not listen and someone else gets hurt. You may not listen and you have a car accident. And it's not beautiful that we create this level of consequential action within our external experience, but these aspects of manifestation are created because we're actually not following our divine guidance, and we're in rebellion of God. And so the more that you remember God, the more that you speak to God, the more that you commune with God, the more that you are expected to listen and follow God's path. Because the more you remember God, there is no reason not to follow God other than your own distortions and control narratives. And so that is what I'm talking about here in the now and today, is that over time-space continuum, there has been many points of time where the control narratives and the power and the forgetting of God has meant that there is aspects of consciousness that has been deceived. How I can explain that in a more human term for individuals to understand is that empathy. When you are empathic, you take on someone's consciousness. You hold someone's consciousness so that you can feel it and you can resonate to it and you can make sense and understand it. So empathy is effectively holding someone's consciousness for them, or processing things for them, or trying to understand an experience by onboarding this energy. Now, this is not what we have been designed to do. It is actually not beneficial to be holding other people's energetic field. I have been an empath, and a high yoga empath is the expression that most would give me, and that means I'm super sensory to feeling, and it has taken me up until this point in my life experience to discern and realize that if I'm holding on to other people's consciousness and feeling within my body, it's a detriment to myself, but it's also a detriment to them. And that has, yes, gifted me a lot of training and a lot of awareness, and I've learned how to read frequency and energy, and there has been many lessons and initiations through this. However, it has created more severance, suffering and pain within my field also. And so I've been learning through the contrast. Now, if we look at this in the empath expression, an empath holds someone's frequency or feeling for them, and therefore that individual cannot actually feel their own emotional experience, because there can be a taking of that from them. And we will look at it in that way of I'm trying to be empathetic, I'm feeling for you, right? I'm processing for you, I'm healing collective wounding. Yet what happens is that when you onboard that emotion, you don't gift that possible expression to an individual to feel for themselves. You don't gift that to the collective to process this emotion themselves. Now, I have been the overly feeling one, and the people in my experience have a suppression or a numbness or a disassociation from feeling. So they're my polarity. Now, these individuals that are not feeling are struggling to meet aspects of themselves because their feeling is not within their body. So this is just one way of how consciousness is transferred and moved. Now, through different history and different timelines, we have actually mimicked people's consciousness. We have stolen people's consciousness. We have energetically taken parts from their body. We have unplugged them. We have placed magic and sorcery on them. And there is a suppression of consciousness through the swapping and the exchanging. And I didn't know how to bring this forth up until now in how it was relatable or why it would be even beneficial to speak into this at this level of awareness, that it may go over many people's heads, and that's okay, but there may be enough that helps you to see your zoomed in lens of your experience in the here and now, of where consciousness is being moved through the field and it is not being retained home in presence. Presence is where the healing is, presence is where God is, presence is where we receive our message. Now, just taking a breath for a moment. When we look at this from a lens of abilities, gifts, codes, frequencies, there is a sovereign choice to come in as the sovereign being that I am, and that all of me is me and all of you is you. That you get to be all of you and I get to be all of me. Now, because of the manipulation of universal laws throughout time-space continuum, what has taken place is the distortions of this, where I actually get to take a piece of you and claim it as myself, and I also give up an aspect of myself to claim that. And this is where the distortions with imbalance and harmony and synergy happens, and fragmentation and parts work. And we basically effectively cut ourselves up, and we give parts of ourselves up, and we take parts of either others or collective to fulfill that. Now, this is the distortion of energetic confusion, because if there was an experience where you decided, I am no longer going to feel this feeling, what you do is you actually choose to give that feeling up. And it gives someone the opportunity in the quantum field to pick that feeling up and to take it on as their own. Not only do we have that, but we have trickery through false light and through control structures, where there has been some kind of power dynamic or an exchange. If you give me this, I'll give you that. And there is an exchange of consciousness, frequencies, codes, remembrances, memories. There are individuals in this experience, and I am grateful, because there are individuals that have helped me to process and purify the Isis consciousness of that which I am as the original incarnation. and that I would not have been able to get to this point in this incarnation as quickly as I did if others had not been working on purifying the Isis line from ancient Egypt, because there was so much distortion that it would have taken me many, many years to do that on my own. Yet this is not other people's responsibility. As a sovereign being, they can choose it, but if they are embodying this consciousness and taking it on as their own, they are actually being of disservice to themselves, because they're not purifying their own consciousness and seeing what is there for them to be witnessed, seen, and observed. And so this expression of taking on other people's energies and moving energy through the field is becoming quite the problem, and it actually has been quite the problem. And what is surfacing is the awareness of the discernment around making your experience about another, making your experience about something outside of the self. And what is it driven by? What is the truth that is being driven by? And are you really tuning in to who you are being, what you are being, where are you coming from, how are you displaying yourself in the world? Are you coming back into presence? Are you connected to your body? If not, why not? And when you're disassociated, what happens in relation to consciousness swapping is that there are consciousnesses, and this is where I can express it in a human lens of alcohol, right? We take a spirit and people go, I turned into someone that it wasn't me. Guess what? It wasn't you. It was an entity or a demonic influence that came into your field because you were disassociated and your field was weakened, and therefore it could be through you and it could act through you, and it would work on the triggers and the weaknesses of your own core wounding, because that is the point of entry. So this point of entry becomes the way that it can control you. And this is where your protection field is strong whilst you're choosing to stay home in your center, whilst you're choosing to either feed. So we're talking about feeding and siphoning is one of the best ways to express this at the moment, is when we're feeding and we're giving. So we're constantly giving our energy out, we're self-abandoning, we're giving. Guess what? My field becomes extremely weak because I'm giving all of this energy out and I'm not in balance within myself. And the only way to create balance in alignment with universal law, and this is where the manipulations start taking place, is if I'm giving, then I have to meet someone who's receiving, and taking, and feeding. So the individual being doesn't necessarily have to be in balance, but the experience that they are in is in balance, and that is universal law. And also that the suppressed or the subconscious aspect is balancing it out. So if you have someone that is showing up in your world and they're giving and they're of all this love and all of this light and they're being all of this energy outward, they have a shadow descended consciousness that is the complete polar opposite to that, because you have to have synergy, harmony, and balance within the universe, which is why it is so important at this point in our trajectory as a collective whole to bring truth and awakening and evolution, to look at what's really true within the self and to start to bring awareness to where these consciousnesses are at play. Because if I'm giving, I'm out of my body, I'm not present, right? So I'm giving. And if I have a shadow aspect or a descended consciousness, or I'm being infiltrated, or I have beings that are working through me, then I'm actually creating the very thing that I say I don't want to create. I'm here to awaken the planet. I'm here to give back to humanity. I'm here to love you. I'm giving. I'm all this happiness, joy, floatiness, whatever that is, which is what I would call false light or spiritual bypass. Is this energy outwardly is allowing for a weakening in the field. So any shadow aspect that is coming in will come into the being, and it will work in the disassociation. Because someone who is up here and is doing all this yummy deliciousness is actually really disassociated to their consciousness, and they don't know. And anyone who is on this live that is watching this has a high potency of frequency, technology and vibration. You are in some level a ascended master, a bringer of change, a star seed, a unified consciousness that is here with a specific mission to come here and to make change on the planet. Now, if you're not present in your being, you're throwing magic through the field, whether or not you're aware of it. But it's like where your attention goes, energy grows. And so if you're outside of yourself, there is an aspect of dissension that is creating the very fuckery that you don't want to create in your world. And you will attract that into your experience, and you will attract those things, because balance in unity in this reality is a must. There is no other way, because yin and yang creates union, and it creates this solid experience that allows you to be you and me to be me, which is the point of separation, where we're meant to come into a place of remembrance of source so we can be separate but in alignment with source. And so as this information is being moved through the field, as you're evolving, as you're becoming more aware, you are being asked, you must be present. You can't have all of this wisdom and information. You can't have all of these frequency tools and be out of your body. That is not okay anymore, because we're evolving. So the grace period is ended. And you can't have your astral body jumping into other people's experience to have a play. You can't, it's a violation of universal law. It's a violation of sovereignty. It's taking and siphoning and doing things that are not welcome within this current now reality. And so the warning is that if you are evolving and you're aware of these things and you've become consciously aware, there's a conscious awareness of your human. If you're consciously aware of these different aspects within reality, you are asked to stay in a discernment and a active choice to stay within, where am I doing this? Where am I creating this? What am I not aware of? What am I unconsciously feeding into? Where do I need to make a declaration of truth? Where am I not witnessing my reality in totality? Where am I playing into division and separation? And what will happen at this point in time, and this is the most uncomfortable piece about it, is that since the 8-8 Lionsgate portal, there has been multiple choice points for the collective, for the bringers of change, and we've been dividing in a hierarchical system. And I know that most of you don't like that word, but it's the truth. There is a hierarchy of evolution, and when you are sitting at this point down here, you will struggle to see what's up here. When you sit up here, you don't like looking down there, and this is uncomfortable realities around different points of evolution. And the aspect of this is that as the bringers of change divide into different consciousness bands and different energy structures and signatures, that there are choice points made at each point. You can quantum leap in a choice point. You can move to a higher evolution of expression. And you can also completely lose your soul mission and what you came here to do, and revert to a consciousness that would not be what your soul or your spirit desires, because you are not consciously choosing, and you are not choosing to meet the descended aspects, the discomfort, the shadow, the points of choice of whether or not you make the uncomfortable choice to step into your purpose and be seen, whether you make the uncomfortable choice to step out of a relationship, whether you make the uncomfortable choice to reclaim who you are and to stand in the fear of being seen in that. There are so many different aspects of what a choice point is, whether you want to see it from the positive or the negative lens. They will have both sides of the pole at different points in time. But these choice points are here, and these choice points are imperative. They're being very, very, very... The time has come that there is enough awareness, education and information within the collective and within the spiritual community that beings can no longer play dumb. The beings can no longer say that they didn't know, because they do. And so when you are hearing these messages, and when you are reading my posts, and when you are resonating and you receive it, and then you continue to do the same thing over and over again, that is a denial of truth. That is a conscious choice not to change. That is where you will lose your opportunity. You will lose the possible role that you came into this incarnation to be. And if you've had visions, you've had dreams, you know that you're here to create X, Y, and Z, and you're playing in false light narratives, or you're dancing with demons, however you want to see it, but you're not unifying them in truth, and you're not really willing to come into the true reality of what is at play, you will lose that opportunity, and it will be painful, and it will be hurtful, and that timeline will collapse for you, and you'll start new. So you'll purify into a new expression, because that collapses. There is a new opportunity, and there is a purification process, but there is also grief, there is also loss, there is an adjustment phase. And this happens from the very, very all realms of consciousness and experiencing and being. Is that you may be someone that's fresh out of your university degree, and you have an opportunity to enroll and receive this possible mentoringship, and you let fear take over because you're too afraid to stand into what that may mean for commitment and devotion to your own gifts and abilities and being seen, and whether or not you can handle it, and whether or not you're able to sustain that level of creative purpose, or whatever the narrative is there for you. And you may not enroll, or you do enroll, but you do not show up in the truth of who you are because of all of the narratives that's there, and you lose that opportunity, and it never comes again. I've done this. I've done many of these things myself. Many, many, many of these things. And when they collapse, there is grief, there is sadness, and there is often a missed possibility, a missed choice. And I remember hearing for the more human interpretation of this, that most people on their deathbed, what they reflect on is all of the things they didn't do. All of the things they let pass them by, because they didn't stand in the truth of what was uncomfortable to create from in empowerment. And so as you're evolving, as you're receiving this information, because you are, so if you are here on my page, you're receiving this information, you are becoming more aware, you are becoming more involved, because what I am teaching is very high level consciousness information. You no longer can say that you don't know. You can no longer say that you haven't heard this before, because you have. And so that puts you in a very uncomfortable situation of, where am I not allowing my awareness to show me the choices that I'm making today? Where am I denying things because I want to control my reality, or I don't want to meet the uncomfortable aspects of where I'm playing out unconsciousness, where I don't want to heal, where I don't want to meet my trauma, where I don't want to stand in my truth? Truth bubbles. So sitting in that point within the heart space and looking at what is really true in my heart. What do I know? What if I didn't choose this and it was taken from me? If I lost it because I didn't choose it? It's not taken. It's just a choice that's not chosen, and therefore it collapses and it's released. What is the choice I don't take, and therefore it's lost and I have to grieve it? Quite a few of those I can see. What in my heart, if I didn't choose from the awareness I have in this now moment, if it was no longer gifted to me and it was released because I didn't choose it wholeheartedly from sovereignty, would I be devastated that I didn't get to create, and that I would always look back on the choice, the path, the what ifs? the consequences to these choices and actions are becoming more profound in how they are shown up, and it is uncomfortable, but you can no longer say that you don't know, because you do. So what do you know that you are not choosing, that if you chose, it would change your reality forever? I love you. I hope that this gifted some great activation, awareness, and information. There is much more on this from a very zoomed out lens that I would love to speak into. However, I do require other individuals to bounce off, because it can be very challenging to speak to such a vast array of information and consciousness without giving examples. So if you desire to learn more around stolen gifts, hoarding of consciousness, loss of feeling, loss of ability, demonic possession, psychic attack, etc., 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 working in the quantum field, and all of the aspects of the limitless potential that all of you have, that every being on this planet has the opportunity to connect into. There is a podcast called Exposing the Gods, where this podcast is exposing these aspects of sacred wisdoms, information, and knowledge, and that there is a deeper depth of awareness of what this is. Our first release is the conversation between Set and Isis. We did record that. Unfortunately, it got lost in the ethers. There was a few more remembrances to come into play so we could tell the full story, because there was a little bit of missing information. And this is going to change your reality of history, the suppression of texts, and the truth of what has been there through the remembrance of the individuals that were there. And it also shows some of the core wounds and severances, so that you can start to make more sense of your own current now experience. This is about your current now experience, coming into the truth of who you are and coming into more totality and empowerment, so you can be the sovereign being that you are. I love you. Have a beautiful day. If this resonates, please share, tag a friend, and let's collectively get these transmissions out to those that are ready to receive.